It was a blistering hot afternoon in Ouagadougou, the capital city of Burkina Faso. The dusty streets shimmered with the relentless heat as the hustle and bustle of daily life continued unabated. In the heart of the city, the central market was alive with noise. The shouts of street vendors, the vibrant colors of fresh fruit and vegetables, and the wafting smells of grilled meat all contributed to the city's lively atmosphere. Yet, amidst this vibrant chaos, there was a figure who seemed entirely out of place. Her name was Adama. She was no stranger to the streets of Ouagadougou. In fact, they had become her home for the last year. Once a woman full of hope, a loving mother, and a skilled craftswoman, Adama now found herself on the outskirts of society, a casualty of a broken system. Her husband had passed away tragically, and with the rising costs of living, she had been forced to take her children to the streets to survive. Dressed in worn-out clothes, her hair tied back into a messy bun, Adama sat under the shade of a dilapidated tree, a few feet away from a busy market stall. Her youngest daughter, Sita, was curled up in her lap, fast asleep. Her other two children, Demba and Mauna, played quietly beside her. She had a few handmade baskets and scarves spread out in front of her, items she had crafted with her own hands. They weren't much, but they were all she had to sell. The life of a street mother was tough, but Adama had learned to survive. Every day she woke up before the sun, walked miles to the market, and spent hours trying to sell her goods. Some days she made a bit of money, other days nothing at all, but it was a life she had come to accept. After all, there was nothing else. Her children, despite their difficult circumstances, remained hopeful, playing with the other children in the market and dreaming of better days. They still held on to the belief that things would get better, that somehow they would find a way out of their hardships. But today was different. Today, something was going to change. A sharp voice cut through the air, snapping Adama out of her thoughts. "Hey, what are you doing here? You think you can just sit around and beg for money?" Adama looked up. A man in a police uniform was standing over her. He was tall, his face hard, his eyes full of disdain. This was Officer Umar, known for his cruel treatment of the people living on the streets. He was notorious for driving the poor and homeless away, treating them as if they were nothing more than an inconvenience to the city. Adama's heart sank. She had seen him before, but she had always hoped to avoid his attention. Today, however, there was nowhere to run. "I'm not begging," she said, her voice steady but filled with quiet defiance. "I'm trying to sell these crafts. I need to feed my children." Umar scoffed, his lip curling into a sneer. "Sell these?" He pointed to the handmade baskets and scarves in front of her. "You expect people to buy this junk? You're just a burden on society." His words stung, but Adama refused to let them break her. She had endured far worse than this. Still, the humiliation of being publicly berated was hard to bear. She glanced at her children, who had stopped playing and were now watching the scene unfold with frightened eyes. Before Adama could say another word, Umar grabbed one of the baskets and flung it aside, the woven fibers unraveling as it hit the ground. "Get up," he ordered. "Pack your things and leave. Now." Adama's hands trembled as she gathered the scattered baskets, but she didn't move. She had been humiliated before, but this was different. Something inside her snapped. She stood up slowly, trying to gather her dignity in the face of this cruel officer. "I'm not leaving," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but filled with an unmistakable strength. "Not like this." At that moment, the sound of approaching footsteps broke through the tense silence. "Is everything okay here?" A new voice, calm, steady. The voice of a man who commanded respect without having to raise it. Adama turned to see a figure step forward, a man dressed in simple clothes, walking with purpose. He was tall, his presence commanding but not overpowering. The crowd that had gathered around them, including a few onlookers who had been too afraid to interfere, now fell into a hushed silence. For a moment, no one dared to breathe. The man's face was familiar. Despite his unassuming attire, there was something unmistakable about him. It was Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso. The crowd held its collective breath. In a country where politicians often appeared distant, Ibrahim was known for his connection with the people. He had made a habit of walking through the streets in plain clothes, observing, listening, and interacting with the common folk. But this time, it wasn't a casual visit. This was a moment of reckoning. Umar, the officer, turned pale as he recognized Ibrahim. He straightened up, nervously adjusting his uniform. I didn't realize it was you, sir," he stammered, suddenly aware of the weight of his actions. Ibrahim raised a hand to silence him. His gaze didn't leave Umar, but his words were directed at Adama. "Are you all right, madam?" Adama could barely believe what she was hearing. The president himself was asking about her well-being. Her heart raced as she nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Ibrahim's warm, compassionate gaze reassured her, and she felt a sudden surge of hope. Turning back to the officer, Ibrahim's voice became firm, yet calm. "What is this? A woman trying to make an honest living, and you're treating her like a criminal? You should be ashamed." Omar, caught off guard and now visibly flustered, took a step back. I was just doing my job. She's blocking the marketplace." "I know exactly what you were doing," Ibrahim interrupted, his eyes narrowing. "You were humiliating her, and you were doing it to assert power over someone you deemed powerless." The crowd, which had been silent, now murmured in agreement. They had seen this kind of treatment before, the authorities exerting their control over the vulnerable, the voiceless. But Ibrahim Traoré wasn't like other leaders. He was a man who walked with the people, felt their pain, and acted when they needed him most. Turning to Adama, Ibrahim smiled gently. "Tell me, what are you selling?" Adama, still in shock, found her voice. I make baskets and scarves, sir. They're handmade, for my children, to feed them." Ibrahim nodded. "I'll buy everything, all of it." Adama blinked in disbelief. "All of it?" "Yes," Ibrahim confirmed, pulling out a thick wad of cash from his pocket. He handed her a generous sum of money, enough to cover her needs for weeks. The crowd stood in stunned silence, watching as their president made this unexpected gesture of kindness. But Ibrahim wasn't finished. He turned back to the officer. "As for you," he said, his tone now cold and commanding, "you will report to the station for an investigation into your actions. You cannot treat the people of this country like this. Not under my watch." Umar, now humiliated in front of the crowd, stammered. You are dismissed," Ibrahim said firmly, turning away from the officer without another word. The crowd erupted into applause, their spirits lifted by Ibrahim's swift and just intervention. The marketplace, which had been filled with tension moments before, was now alive with hope. For Adama, this moment was life-changing. As she held the money in her hand, she realized that her struggle wasn't in vain. She would be able to feed her children, buy them clothes, and, most importantly, begin to rebuild her life. Ibrahim turned back to her, his smile warm and reassuring. From now on, You will not be alone. You and your children will have support. You are not invisible. That evening, the story of how Ibrahim Traoré had stepped in to stop an officer from humiliating a street mother spread like wildfire across the country. It was a story that captured the hearts of the people, a story of justice, compassion, and a president who cared. Adama's life slowly began to change. With Ibrahim's help, she was able to find a stable home, secure a steady income, and provide her children with an education. Her story became a symbol of the power of one act of kindness and the beginning of a new chapter for the country. And for Ibrahim, it was a reminder that leadership was not about titles or power. It was about standing up for those who needed it most and never letting anyone be forgotten.